Reacts, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Yes guys, we're back again with another video. Today we're just going to catch up with what's been going on over the weekend. Some of the players that we're linked with going out of the club, one or two that we're hopefully coming in. We've been hearing a lot about a goalkeeper, hearing a lot about a midfielder. Everyone's been talking about the importance of bringing in a midfielder like Baleba, so everyone's quite excited at the fact that we were linked with him last week. A lot of us are thinking that Baleba is the missing piece to the puzzle, and he can actually have us compete for at least a top 5, if not top 4 position. Obviously, it's the first season for a lot of these players, so we don't expect them to all just hit the ground running. But we do think that there is enough quality in the side, especially with one game a week, to be competing for at least a top 5. So just catching up with some of the news, we're hearing that Rasmus Hojlund, he's looking more likely to be leaving the club and going to AC Milan, and that's one of the players that we're hoping to recuperate some of the funds in, especially if we're able to get that 40 million price tag that we've put on him from AC Milan. That will go a long way in helping us to secure that signing of a midfielder in Carlos Baleba. So let's see how that works out. Obviously, at the beginning, Hojlund was talking a lot about staying at United, fighting for his position, and he didn't really want to leave the club. But I think since Sesko's come in and you got Zertsky there, and also the manager chose to leave him on the bench and play Mason Mount up there, Cunha up there, and Bumo, I think that's allowed him to understand that his days are numbered at the club, and he does actually have to step out and start looking for somewhere else to play his football. As we all know, I think Rasmus Hojlund just came into the club at the wrong time. Does he have the ability to lead the line for Man United? I don't think so. Should he have the ability at the age of 2021? I don't think he should either. I think when we look at around world football, and we look at a lot of the strikers and the amount of goals they were getting at his age, it's very similar. But I just feel like with the amount of media pressure and world scrutiny that's at the club, he actually and really did and would have benefited a lot from having a forward striker in front of him, so he can kind of just get on with his job behind closed doors and try to develop without him having to have that much pressure. But it is what it is. I'm guessing most of the fan base is happy that he can get a fresh start and we can just crack on and try to get back to competing ways. We've been linked with a goalkeeper, Donnarumma. So Donnarumma is a keeper that has been at PSG for a couple seasons, Italian #1 goalkeeper. He's only 26 years old. Only 26 years old. I did think he was a bit older, but to find out that he's only 26, I do think with this that United can afford to let him just sit out his last season at PSG and bring him in next season on a free. I'm not one of those fans who think that the goalkeeping position, it needs to be changed now. I think it's one of the last things that you change. I think when I look at Arsenal, when they needed to get a new goalkeeper, they were competing, and they competed for the Premier League title with Aaron Ramsdale in goal, and then they realised they needed to change him to get to the next level. But they did compete with Ramsdale in goal. So that tells me that we should be able to get top 4 with Onana. Even when you look at our goal record last season or goals conceded, we wasn't too far off the teams that actually finished in the top 4. Our goal record is not much different from Aston Villa or Newcastle. We didn't actually concede like a load more goals than they did. I think one of the problems that we had last season, we only scored, I think, 44 to 45 goals. That's just not good enough, and that's why we've brought in a front three who have scored that on their own. Because as a whole team to only score 44 Premier League goals is just not on. So for me, looking at the amount of goals that we conceded last year, and it being very similar to those teams who are actually competing for the top 4 positions and actually got top 4, that tells me that Onana is not an excuse for us to not be finishing in the top 4. Onana can be an excuse for us not to win the Premier League title, or maybe not to compete. But like I said, Arsenal competed with Ramsdale, and the reason they did is because they had a 10 in front of him who were capable to actually play football and play football to a high level. And I think if you do the same for Onana, he shouldn't be as big as a problem as everyone's making out. And that allows us to then go in next season and get Donnarumma on a free. He's got 1 year left on his contract. PSG are not renewing it. We can agree terms get it signed, I believe, in January, and in the summer he walks in at 27 years old, ready to compete with Onana. And I don't think that's one of the worst ideas that we can go into next season with, and that's just my opinion on it. We got Garnacho. Garnacho's meant to be going out to Chelsea. That looks like it's moving on. Obviously, he's not done any pre-season. He's training on his own. He doesn't want that situation to really go on any longer than it has to. But Chelsea have got a plan in terms of how they want to get him in and Xavi Simons, and I think they're sticking to it. One of the things that I would like to mention about the move to Chelsea for Garnacho, I think that it's connected to a midfield, and I feel like if we can't get our number one target in Carlos Baleba, can we tempt Chelsea to allow Lavia to be a part of the deal? Can we tempt Chelsea? Because a lot of people are forgetting the level of football that Lavia played while at Southampton. And to me, he's just as good as Baleba, if not better. He has been an important player for Chelsea when he's been fit. Obviously, he's had a few injury issues since he's got to Chelsea. But before that, he played very well, played the full season for Southampton. No injury issues at all. So I do believe it's just part of him growing and having a few niggles as he grows. But I don't think it's something that's going to, be something that follows him throughout his whole career. So I do believe if we can get Chelsea to think about allowing Lavia to come to Man United, I think that will be a great purchase for Man United, and I think it will be at half the price of what we'll be asked to be getting Baleba in for. Chelsea might just be happy to get their 50 million back. They might want a little profit of 10 to 15, maybe 65 million. But I think to get him at that price and let Garnacho go the other way and only have to pay 10 to 15 million will be a massive steal for us. And I think I'm going to do a video on Carlos Baleba versus Lavia about their attributes. How different are they, and is getting Lavia a massive shout if we can't get Baleba, but we'll move on to that. But let's see. Hopefully we can get Garnacho out as soon as possible to get some of that money in that we want to get Carlos Baleba, because he still would be my number one choice. And also hopefully Sancho, the news with Sancho can start moving on, because I don't know what's going on with him. He's not training, and Anthony's the same. I think Anthony, Sancho and Garnacho have to actually start to get the ball rolling with their agents and try to get themselves out of the club as soon as possible, because sitting around and not training and the season kicks off next week is a madness as far as I'm concerned. And then we've had pictures come out this morning of Sesko training with the boys. It's good to see Sesko with the team and just being out there on the pitch. I see a couple pictures of him and Zertsky doing some drills together. Great to see, excited to see what that brings, what type of partnership that brings. For me, the fact that we got Zertsky, and if he's fit, I'm not in any pressure to start Sesko or to push him. I think give him time. Don't put that pressure on him. We've got a striker in Zertsky who is more than capable of holding the position and doing the job. And I just feel like they shouldn't have to be this pressure on Sesko to have to be fit and to play every game. I think we should kind of ease him into the first team and just let him have time to adapt. Zertsky had last season to adapt to the Prem, and as we saw, the more the season went on, the better he got, the better his timing and reading of the Premiership and the speed of the Prem got, and the better player that we saw from Zertsky. So I'm happy for him to start the season and to kind of ease Sesko in and see how that goes. But yeah, again, guys, one of the things I think is that we might struggle with is that if we force him into being this 9 position early on, and then he's left in the same position that you saw Hojlund in, where if he doesn't score in his first couple of games, all of a sudden this mad media press jump all over him, and they put him under all of this pressure for him to have to kind of deliver. And I don't think that has to be the case. But getting on to the main part of this video, I was looking at the front three of PSG and I was asking myself, what is first I said to myself, what's the best midfield three in world football today, and what is it that everyone's looking at and trying to compete with? And obviously that goes without saying with the level of football that we saw from PSG last season. But one of the things that I think a lot of people forget as well is that come Christmas last season, they were actually struggling in the Champions League until they went and got Kvaratskhelia from Napoli in, and he kind of changed their season for him. I think until they got Kvaratskhelia in from Napoli, they were having quite a difficult run, especially in the Champions League. Obviously, they do what they do in France, and I think that was a big turning point in their season. But nevertheless, we look at João Neves, Vitinha, and Fabian Ruiz, and we're told that this is the best free midfield trio that you can find in world football. And I look at them individually, and I say individually, they're good players. They have good technical ability. But I think with a different manager, and if they don't have the manager that they have now, they could struggle in any system. I look at any one of these players in a midfield two at Man United, and they're struggling. You put Neves next to Bruno, he struggles. You put Vitinha next to Bruno, he struggles. You put Fabian Ruiz next to Bruno in the midfield too, again, he struggles. And I feel like unless you pick formations and you set up your team in a way that actually benefits the players that you have and you support them, you're going to find that midfielders will struggle. Midfielders that we rate today will struggle. And I just don't want Baleba to end up being in that same problem when he comes, if we able to get him through the door this transfer window and he turns up at United. Yes, Baleba will do good because he's a great ball carrier, he's an athlete, he's great on the ball, and he has an eye for pass and also an eye for a tackle. But nevertheless, when you're left in the midfield two, and with someone like Bruno Fernandes who loves to vacate the midfield, you struggle. If he's left with Colby, it's a different game. But even then, when there's only two players in the middle of the park and you get swamped by opposition, and sometimes they've got four in the middle of the park, they're going to find it difficult unless the rest of the team, support them and kind of help on these presses that we have when we're trying to get the ball back, or even when we're trying to get out and push out into the final third. So for me, I think United need to go back to a 4-3-3. I think it's very important for us to actually get the best out of the players that we have. I also think that without even making another signing, if someone like Antonio Conte had this squad, I think he competes for the title. I do. I think you get Antonio Conte, those three forwards that you've just got, Ruben Amorim. I think he plays a he plays a similar system that he played at Chelsea with, 3 at the back, 5 in midfield, 2 up front, and I think he was in a similar situation where they only had 1 game a week, and he competes. And he challenges and he adapts the team to actually do the best that it can do and brings out the best of the players rather than create a system that actually just points out the flaws and doesn't allow the players to be the best that they can. So I'm looking at this team now, and everyone's saying if we don't get Baleba, we won't be able to get a top 6 challenge. And I think, but without Baleba, someone like Antonio Conte actually makes this team compete for the title, let alone we're talking about just trying to get in the top 6. But even if we do get Baleba, I think it's important Man United move to a 4-3-3. I think a midfield of Baleba in the 6, Kobe Mainoo in the 8, and the furthest in that 3 being Ahmad, because I think Ahmad is being wasted on as a wing back. As good as he is, he's a much better number 10, and he's much better when he's in the middle of the park. I think a midfield 3 of Ahmad, Baleba, and Kobe Mainoo would be a fantastic midfield that can compete against any team in the Premiership and dare I say any team in world football. I think the ability of ball carrying, ball possession, flair that you have from those 3 players and their technical ability, I think it will be second to none to any team that we would come against, and with a manager that allows them to get the best out of these players and the best out of their attributes. And then imagine having 3 players in front of them of Mbeumo, Cunha and Zertsky, or Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko. I just don't see how we struggle, and having a back line of Euro, who is, a regen of Varane, next to a Martinez, with Dorgu left back and like Mazraoui right back. Again, I just don't see how that team does not compete at the highest level. But the formation has to be right, and it has to be a formation that allows this team to actually, bring out the best characteristics of the players that we have, rather than set up a formation that just keeps on, bringing out their flaws, the things that they're not good at. And one of the biggest problems that we have here, the fact that Kobe Mainoo is not a starter at this team, one of the best ball-playing midfielders we have at the club, if not the best, is not a nailed-on starter in this team tells you everything that you need to know about this manager and how he wants to play the game. Because I don't think there's any other manager in world football who wants to play a possession-based game and wants to win every battle in midfield by retaining possession, playing out from midfield, who does not play Kobbie Mainoo. Not with the ability that the kid has. So this is what worries me with Amorim, the fact that he's trying to push Bruno back into this midfield position. When you look every game we've had in pre-season, when Bruno gets moved further up into the 10s and we bring Kobbie and Ugarte, Kobbie and Casemiro, we start to play more football. When Kobbie gets on the ball, you start to see more football in the middle of the park. And it was the same thing against Fiorentina. As soon as he came on, you start to see us playing more football. When he's not there, we're just bypassing the midfield. Bruno's getting the ball. He's trying to do those Hollywood passes. It's not working. So again, I think we go back to a formation of 4-3-3. Kobbie, Baleba in the 6, Kobbie Mainoo in the 8, and Ahmad in the 10 of a midfield 3 with a fantastic forward lineup of Sesko, Cunha, and Mbumo, or you add Zerski in there, whichever one that you want. And I think Man United compete at the highest level, and I think we definitely compete for the top 4, and the minimum is top 5. But I don't know what you think, guys. What do you think about that midfield of Baleba, Kobbie, and Ahmad? Do you think that will be a midfield that will take United into the next 5 to 6, 7 years? Do you think that's a midfield that will be able to take us back into the Champions League and compete at the highest level? Leave your comments in the comment section. I'll be sure to jump in there and conversate with you guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, especially like so more people can get to see these videos and see it. And yeah, that's it, guys. Catch you on the next one. I'm out.